Hey guys, I'm Dave.
And I'm Len.
And today we're going to talk about fighter aces. The first one that comes to mind is someone named Helmut Lent. And he's not related to me, he just happens to have the same last name, but he shot down 110 aircraft in World War II. He was a German ace. What's your first ace?
I want to clarify one thing. When you're qualifying aces, it's not just the numbers. There are other qualifications like leadership, their flying skills.
Well, from what I understand, you just had to shoot down 5 planes and you were an ace by anyone's book.
Well, actually, I was thinking more of like, which are the top aces?
Well, yeah, favorite aces, top aces, whatever. But
and also things like remarkable marksmanship, and then what kind of theater? Were they always outnumbered and things like that? So.
Probably so. That's why they got so many kills. I mean, if you have the enemy outnumbered, you're going to get less kills.
Target-rich environment.
Yeah.
Okay, my favorite one is the king of air fighters, Mick Mannix, the one-eyed British ace, who only scored 8 kills less than the Red Baron. And I got to remember, he fought over German lines, so a lot of his kills weren't credited. Plus, he also gave away a few of them to his wingmen. If the plane was on fire.
What was he flying? What kind of plane?
He flew mostly. In the end, it was SC-5s.
SC-5s.
Yeah, actually, the British aces liked SC-5s.
What is an SC-5? I've never even heard of that plane.
Okay, SC-5 is a...
What's the nickname for it? It's obviously got a name.
Actually, that's the nickname. It never got a real nickname.
Really?
SC-5. Its advantage was it was fast. Only until the D7 and the SPAD-13 did you have anything faster. And they had a long range. And also, it was something unlike other planes. It didn't vibrate, so you had a steady gun platform. So the British aces loved to take it up, fly deep into enemy territory, and shoot up the place. It had a disadvantage. It didn't roll too well, and it wasn't very maneuverable. But like when you're hitting people, when you're diving out of the sun, deep in enemy lines, you probably get a good chance of getting a kill.
Interesting. I'm surprised to hear that because I figured you were going to say it was like a Spitfire pilot or something.
Oh, that's maybe later on.
Oh, okay. All right, next one that comes to mind. This is not one of my favorite aces. I'd say this is the most controversial ace I've heard of. Randy Cunningham from the United States Navy in Vietnam. There's been some talk about his last 2 kills may have not occurred the night he was shot down. And he claimed he shot down. I don't know. Was it 2 or 3? Yeah, and. North Vietnamese, I don't think, kept that good of records during that war, but someone asked them about that, and they had claimed they had only lost, like, I don't know, 1 plane that day or something, so that doesn't mean anything. I mean, they could have just not kept good records or could have not kept the truth, but during that war, in order to be credited with a kill, you had to have gun camera footage, period. He is the only U.S. pilot during that war who was credited for kills that did not occur on the gun camera, and I think what was going on is Navy wanted an ace so bad they were willing to bend the rules just to have an ace, because both the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy were made fools of by the North Vietnamese Air Force. I mean, the F-4 Phantom was a horrible dogfighter, and the Russian planes they went against just chewed those things up. I think the U.S. in air-to-air combat, I think the North Vietnamese actually destroyed more U.S. aircraft than the U.S. Destroyed North Vietnamese aircraft in air-to-air combat. I mean, it was one of our worst showings in history as far as dogfighting.
Well, that's because they wouldn't come south to the DMZ.
Well, yeah, I mean,
little cowards.
Well, they were flying MiG-21s, and a MiG-21 has a total of about, a 200-mile range, and if you light the afterburner, your range is, about a fourth that? So, I mean, with a MiG-21, that's a point defense aircraft, you can't use that long range. They couldn't have used that very far over South Vietnam.
Il-28s. But they never sent it south to the DMZ.
Why would they? I mean, They would have gotten eaten alive. I mean,
Yeah,
with the small air force they had, I mean, as an American, I'm embarrassed to say, but their Vietnamese Air Force, North Vietnamese, actually did very well considering its size. In most cases, it made a fool of the United States.
Well, one thing you got to people may not understand is that after his mission, he left and the plane went down. The plane Cunningham and Driscoll were flying went down. Now, they claimed it was a SAM that hit it. But most likely what happened...
Oh, I read a book that the North Vietnamese claimed that they shot it down with I think it was a MiG-21 or something, or a MiG-17.
Well, the thing is that if you run out of gas, there's a vacuum in the engine and then it explodes. And they were flying... he's going throttle out a lot in that mission. After the third mission, he's roaring and looking for another guy and then another guy. So,
I don't trust his SAM claim because they were flying over North Vietnamese territory within these SAM's range, and the SAMs didn't fire it until he was over the ocean leaving. That sounds kind of weird.
Well, what the North Vietnamese do is that you usually had a SAM day or a plane day. And if you had a SAM day, you grounded everything so that you knew everything flying was hostile. If you had a plane day, you turned off all your SAMs and let the planes take care of it.
But yeah, I'm skeptical as to whether he really shot down all the planes he did shot down. I'm sure he shot down some, but like I said, he's the only U.S. pilot in that war who was credited for kills that were not on gun camera. So
yeah. And one thing, he also became the most corrupt congressman ever.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I know, of course, I was thinking nowadays maybe there's other people who claim the record, with inflation.
Well, I think they keep breaking the record in Congress each year. But
what I always thought was a good thing about the epithet with this controversy was there was a left-wing magazine, and they said that, okay, with our politics, naturally, we disagreed with everything Cunningham stood for. But never in our darkest moment did we think he was corrupt. And that was the thing. He broke a lot of hearts.
Well, I wasn't aware of that at all.
Oh, yes. I think he's finally finished the sentence about a year or two ago. So I don't know. Yeah, he wants to stay quiet. So.
All right, who's your next one? My next one would be the Red Baron, but I'm almost loath to even talk about him. He's the most talked about ace, so who's your next one?
Okay. I have so many to choose from. I tend to like, British World War II ace, Doug Bader. The legless ace, who was noted for his very aggressive, very vulgar misdemeanor. They were noting that the film biography of him, they have Kenneth More playing him. It was a quiet Englishman, and everyone no, he was not. He also was very controversial among his ranks, and I think it was Sailor Mahan. Oh, he summed it up beautifully. They had a conference. Fighter aces decide like the armament of future aircraft, and he got an argument over Stanford Tuck, and it was like, okay, let's go outside, and they're both going out there. Doug Bader's on two tin legs, and he had to intervene, and as he pulled Tuck aside, Sailor Mahan explained to him, if Doug didn't act this way, he wouldn't be flying with us. You had to be an ultra-aggressive guy to want to fly again after you lost two legs. So.
All right, who had the most kills in World War II from the United States?
Richard Bong.
And how many kills?
40.
40. Oh, that's good. And there's that one German guy who had, 200 or something?
300. Okay, Hartmann had 200.
Yeah, Hartmann. That's the name I was thinking of.
But, the ones the German aces all say is the best among their peers is Hans Joachim Marseille.
How many kills did he have?
He had only 158, but these were all against the British. British and British Commonwealth, which in the Luftwaffe, the Americans came in large formations and knew how to fly low, and the Russians, well, they flew nice and straight.
Yeah.
But it's the British that they fought them one-on-one, and they were tough. So, and he had also, like, in flight training, they have a very difficult test you have to pass to qualify. He had a perfect score. No one had a perfect score.
Well, that's good.
He also had, well, he partied a lot. There was a lot of drinking and womanizing in his background. His father was a general, so that helped keep him from. And he was a member of JG 52, which will go down in history as the highest scoring fighter group in history. They beat up a lot of Russians, but he didn't contribute that much. Because he was shipped out because, as Becky Steiner, the Gestapo was looking for a very handsome pilot that dishonored a Gestapo official, and he knew who they were talking about. I'll give you an idea. And because of his good score, they transferred him to a squadron that was considered a squadron of experts. They were to work on pioneer tactics and everything. On his first mission, he spotted the enemy aircraft before anybody else. Remember, he's flying with the experts. And then he shot it down. He's one of the few people who shot down planes on their first mission. So, yeah, that's one. He died in like late 42 because his plane caught fire. And when he bailed out, he hit the tailplane and parachute didn't deploy in time, so that was sad.
All right, Korean War. Who was the U.S. pilot who had the most kills in that one? Do you know?
I think it was McConnell.
Oh, okay.
Most kills.
And the Russians, or the North Koreans, but I think weren't they some of them Russian pilots?
Yes,
they had some aces too, didn't they?
Because I think a Russian Beazo Kasselbach or something had 57 kills in World War II. And I think he had like about 20, he claimed 20 in Korea.
It's probably true.
We're saying after the Cold War, they opened up the records, and they found out the Russians claimed more than we ever lost. So there's some exaggeration there.
True, but I mean, it seemed like the pilots the U.S. went up against in Korea were decent pilots.
Well, the thing is, the quality varied, because I think, remember, they were also there to train North Korean and Chinese pilots. So we have the impression some days those are strictly Chinese or North Korean flights, and they had to get some experience sometime. So, because there were a few incidents where the guys were just flying in straight lines, and we just picked them.
I don't know how this just popped in my mind, but did you know when ejecting from an aircraft, if you're going faster than about 500 miles an hour, it's you're more likely to die than to live?
Yeah, it's kind of rough.
Yeah, that makes you kind of wonder what the speed of the planes. Now, obviously, they're not going full speed when they're dogfighting and stuff, but they're routinely going much faster than 500 miles an hour in a dogfight, which means if you get shot down, you're going to be killed when you eject. I think the F-111 had a capsule that came out, so that one you could eject at like Mach 2 and survive.
Yeah, and also I think the F-58 Hustler, that had a capsule too. Somebody said that actually ejection seats nowadays have a 90% survival rate.
Well, it depends on the speed you're going. I mean, the basic difference now, the Russians actually have the best ejection seats, believe it or not. It used to be on the old ones, it would pull your legs in before you ejected. Now I think they pull your arms in too and stuff, and you're held into place better. But yeah, I mean, if you're ejecting at 700 miles an hour, your history, no matter what kind of seat you're in, I mean, just from the wind hitting you when you leave the aircraft.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of times with the procedure, if you can, you pull your nose up if you're going to eject and try to reduce your speed.
Right.
But sometimes you're spinning around a lot, so that's not. You just hope for the best.
Yeah, or you wait for the plane to tumble a bit before ejecting. But the problem is the plane might be on fire, in which case you got to leave immediately.
Oh,
but. They got it easy though. The fighter pilots, helicopter pilots. I mean, there's no ejecting from those and no parachuting from those. If you're hit, you just go down with the aircraft.
Yeah.
So.
I think did they even bother carrying parachutes?
No, and I was a helicopter mechanic in the Army, Army Reserve actually. Yeah, there's no parachutes whatsoever on the helicopters. You go down with the aircraft.
I thought at the beginning they gave them parachutes just in case you could.
Well, not
I think
that I've
they give
seen.
them confidence. Oh, another fun one everybody likes is Werner Voss.
I've heard the name. Who was he? He sounds like he's German.
German in World War One, and not only did he get a lot of quick scores, but his last flight, he came back from leave, most likely hungover, and he fought for about 20 minutes. He fought off 7 of the RAF's top pilots. And he actually, I think, shut down 1, damaged 2, but of course, it was, they would eventually get him. So, he was noted for, he was considered a great pilot. He was planes, he could throw the plane all over the place. And also very accurate shooting.
Interesting. All right, World War One. We're not going to talk about the Red Baron. He's so talked about in history. Who'd you like in World War One besides the Red Baron as far as aces?
Okay, so Manak. I also liked. Everybody likes Albert Ball. That he's the lone ace. He had good vision and everything. I think there's a legend that at one point he disappeared. And supposedly on the way back, he would stop at some church tower, check the time. Germans noted that, so they put a machine gun up in it and got him. And we should, World War One, we've got to note the balloon busters. Certain guys became famous as balloon busters. And you got to understand, you had to fly not only, there was a covering air patrol, you had to go through flak, and everybody knew where you were heading, so they knew where to aim, and so you were hoping to get there, and you still couldn't hit the damn thing.
I would assume they used incendiary bullets since those balloons back then were filled with hydrogen.
Yeah, well, if they can get them.
Well, even if they could get near it, but it sounds like once you were near it, if there's no one around to protect it, it probably wasn't that difficult to shoot down the balloon.
Well, the thing is, if they winched it down in time, they could patch up any holes.
Oh.
So.
But if you use an incendiary bullet, though, it's going to light up.
Yeah. Well, sometimes what happened with incendiaries, I think there was something about they had a shorter range than regular bullets. And also sometimes it was hard to aim them because sometimes they would dip down.
Interesting.
Because they were lighter or something.
Well, it's hollowed out and filled with like white phosphorus or something.
So it's lighter. So. Ray Fanuc is the top allied ace. He's 75. 5 less than the Red Baron. And what happened with him was...
How many did the Red Baron have?
80.
Oh, okay.
During the summer of 1918, he went wild. He started going through these 2-3 kill missions. There was one time he shot down 3 planes, and they were all within a quarter mile of each other. One day he shot down 6 planes. 3 of them were Fokker D7s. Of course, he's not as popular because he tends to brag about his accomplishments. Not like, I think they expect fighter aces to be quiet and nice.
So is it true that post-Korean War, the only fighter aces that were created were in the Israeli Air Force?
Yeah, well, we had a few, not only have a Cunningham, I think we had Steve Ritchie in Vietnam.
Oh, that's what I meant, post-Vietnam, yeah.
The only ones were Israelis, and I forgot to look up a few, because I'm not sure.
I think most of them were F-15 pilots, too.
Well, yeah, there were some Mirage 3 pilots.
Right.
And supposedly there was an A4 pilot that was an ace, flying A4.
Well, that's actually a very maneuverable plane, the A4. The U.S. Navy, when they used it in Vietnam, they didn't use it as a fighter. They used it more as a bomber. But, yeah, it's supposed to be turned really well and stuff. That's why they used it in those... I don't know if it was in the Top Gun program
Top Gun,
or
yeah.
Red Flag or whatever. They used those as the aggressors for a while.
Yeah, because I think actually probably both of them, because it was small enough and maneuverable enough to mimic the MiGs.
I'm glad you mentioned the Mirage. Yeah, that's a good aircraft that doesn't get the recognition it deserves.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty maneuverable for a supersonic aircraft. Not the most maneuverable, but that's just a solid fighter.
I think there's something with Delta Wings is they have a light wing loading. So at easy G's, you hardly... But the thing is, if you pull high G's, the wing acts as an air brake. So you lose speed faster.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I think they call it losing energy, yeah.
But the advantage is, boy, in a straight line, you get a fast plane with Delta.
Cool. Got any others?
Tom McGuire is the second American ace.
What war?
World War II. And we should note there was one mission. I'm not sure if he got the Congressional Medal of Honor. I'm sure one mission he saw a P-38 leaving with the engine smoking, and there was one Jap plane closing the distance. But he looked around and saw the 4 other Jap planes way behind him. So he took a chance, dove down, and got the plane. But the other 4 Jap planes caught up with him and shot him to pieces. And he bailed out, but he was low. So the chute opened barely by the time he hit the water, so he had some cracked ribs. A PT boat crew saw the entire combat. And it's like, whoa. Now that was daring on his part. So
I got a question. You mentioned the Congressional Medal of Honor. I noticed post-World War II it's just referred to as the Medal of Honor. So does that mean now it doesn't require congressional approval, but back then it did? Or
no, I think it still requires congressional. It just for some reason they dropped the C. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's kind of odd that Congress has to approve it because I mean Congress has no military authority. You would think the president would have to approve it since he's the commander in chief. So that just seems odd.
But I think it was part of, they tried to delegate some of the presidential war powers. So I guess giving Congress the ability to award Medal of Honors. Because usually what it is the military nominates you, and it's almost like a sure thing. I can't think of any time Congress has rejected a proposal. And also, I think they sometimes were, well, during the Civil War and afterwards, they were a little like lenient or a little eager, because there were a lot of, like, the Navy sailors were awarded medals of honor for things like life-saving and things like that. And
well, the Medal of Honor originally was in the only medal you could get in the Civil War, and I mean, you could be given a Medal of Honor in that war for like clerical duties or something. I mean, it was just a medal. It wasn't like now where it's the ultimate medal. It was just a medal back then, and so all sorts of people were given the Medal of Honor in the Civil War, and quite a few for non-combat activities they did.
Plus also, well, actually, I think there was one. The Congress gave one regiment medals of honor because they extended their discharge date to cover Washington during the Gettysburg campaign. I think later on they revoked it, just saying, nah, you know. So, also, someone was saying that it took a long time for Teddy Roosevelt to get his Medal of Honor.
I didn't know he had a Medal of Honor.
Well, yeah, I think it was sometime in the 70s or 80s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because sometimes they review these things. And somebody said that they had a committee who would nominate a Congressional Medal of Honor. And the thing was, Roosevelt generally did most... This committee liked people who saved lives. Like they talked about one trooper that risked fire to save his commanding officer and bring him to safety. Automatic Congressional Medal of Honor. In the 19th century, they loved this story. Now they try, you know, now they have things like, well, I was thinking Audie Murphy on the burning tank destroyer is a classic example.
I visited his grave in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
I think I left a penny on top of his tombstone.
Really?
A lot of people left change on top of it, so I was like, I'll leave a penny too.
When I visited, I saw you that I seemed to got the wrong direction. I was about to go back, and I saw a bunch of people around one grave, and I said, let's see who that is. Ah, somebody. Oh, yes. Because I think it's like, at risk, valiant action or things like I forget, they had a list of qualifications. You jeopardize your personal safety to, with him, he was not so much, he was doing this action to save his company from being overrun. So.
Yep.
Because I think in World War II, some of the pilots got Congressional Medal of Honors as like a lifetime Oscar, lifetime achievement Oscar. Because I think Boynton got it for just his leadership and just being a good leader and getting a whole bunch of kills. I think Bonham and Maguire also. And I note that the most decorated airman, American airman in World II, never got the Congressional Medal of Honor. He got lots of other flying crosses. Don Blakely, who was busy leading the 4th Fighter Group. Because there was in the United States Air Force, there was a rule that bomber crews got the medals, fighter pilots got the publicity. Even though there were exceptions, like when John Howard fought out 9 enemy aircraft by himself to save the bombers. When he was recommended by bomber crews that were under attack, that got people's notice.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Any others?
I want to note Eddie Rickenbacker since he's such a legend. But one thing I noted about him, he was an ace until like September 12th. He came back from the sick leave. And from there into the armistice, he shot down 21 aircraft. He just went after them one after the other. So.
Cool. All right, guys, that's all we got. We'll have something new for you next time. Have a good one.